Overpower has the coolest section of music I have ever written. And if you don't agree with that at first, listen to it a couple times thinking about the rhythms, and maybe it'll change your mind. So, up until this point, the song is mostly in 4/4. That's the most standard time signature you can have. Heading into this section, the right hand starts doing quarter note triplets, which is the basis for the rhythm of this section, the 3/2 polyrhythm. Learning how to do polyrhythms takes a bit of practice. If you want to learn how to do it yourself, try tapping with both hands, doing 3 on one hand and 2 on the other. 3/2 polyrhythms are seen in Overpower a lot, but this section completely shakes things up. As soon as it starts, the quarter note triplets in the right hand suddenly become constant eighth notes. So what that means in a 4/4 measure is that it's transitioning from 6 notes per measure to 8 notes per measure. Now we would normally expect 6 notes per measure in a 4/4 measure to be the 3 part of the 3/2 polyrhythm, since after all there were quarter note triplets right before this. But the right hand still stays as the 3 part of the 3/2 polyrhythm while being eighth notes, and the left hand starts up as a 2 part. So this is possible because it shifted over from quarter note triplets versus quarter notes to eighth notes versus dotted eighth notes. Both rhythms give the same 3/2 feel, but at a different speed. Because of the nature of this 3/2 polyrhythm, there are multiple ways to break up this section time signature wise. Let's take a look at the sheet music. The first way you could break this part up is in 4/4, continuing the feel of the previous section. The right hand is doing constant eighth notes, which helps establish the feeling for 4/4. Breaking it up this way does work and it flows nicely from the last part, but counting along in 4/4 doesn't really align with the strong beats in the music. A better way to count this part while still keeping the quarter notes as the beat is to count in a mixed meter with the main time signature being 3/4. This part starts off consistently with groups of 3/4, then 3/4, then 2/4. Overall, this adds up to 8 quarter notes, so it lines up perfectly with 2 bars of 4/4, but better emphasizes the feel of the music. However, as the section progresses, it starts to break down. The bar of 2/4 first becomes a bar of 1/4. The next group, it becomes a bar of 1/8, making it impossible to count in quarter notes the whole way. A different way to count this part is emphasized, and once it transitions to the next section, it entirely leans into that. Let me introduce you to the final way to count this part, compound meter. Compound meter is when the beat divides into 3 notes. In contrast, simple meter is when the beat divides into 2 notes. In simple meter, you usually count via the quarter note. Some examples in this are 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. The bottom number in the time signature tells you that you're counting in quarter notes, and the top number tells you how many of those notes are within one measure. But what if you get something like 12/8? When you're counting in simple meter and the bottom number is 4, you should have 2 eighth notes per beat. But when you're counting in compound meter and the bottom number is 8, you should have 3 eighth notes per beat. The most common compound meters are 6/8, 9/8, and 12/8, which correspond perfectly to their counterparts in simple meter. Since 3 eighth notes are a beat in compound meter, 6/8 has 2 beats per measure just like 2/4, 9/8 has 3 beats per measure just like 3/4, and 12/8 has 4 beats per measure just like 4/4. When counting in compound meter, it's best to subdivide each beat into 3 eighth notes to get a feel for it. Here's an example of how 12/8 is counted with 4 groups of 3. The compound meter of this section of Overpower is a bit more complicated. The beginning can be counted in 16/8, which is split into 5 groups of 3 and 1 group of 1. The fourth measure is in 14/8, which is split into 4 groups of 3 and 1 group of 2. The fifth measure is in 13/8, which is split into 4 groups of 3 and 1 group of 1. Afterwards, it finally progresses into something more familiar, foregoing the group of 1 and moving into 12/8. It doesn't stay here for long, transitioning to 9/8, which continues on into the next section. Now that we've gone over every way this section can be broken up, and all the rhythms involved, let's listen to how it all comes together. All the rhythms and methods of counting down will be shown here for you to follow along.